Dirty Fruit, Sexy Pictures of Nature's Candy was born.
Meet Jose Angel Castro, a creative entrepreneur.
What my client needs is more important than what I want.
Right. Jose is accomplished at singing, at dancing, at theater, at art. And most people are told, pick one thing, damn it. Niche down.
Yep, right.
But if you think of all those things as creative, it's like a spoonful of sugar, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes all that medicine go down.
Yeah. Done is better than perfect. There was not a more important decision I could have made than joining BNI. And there's nobody who's more surprised by that than me.
Now I'm happy, and so it's all good. Welcome back to the Marty Davis Show, where business owners and entrepreneurs hear real stories and get real playbooks. I'm Marty Davis, business lawyer and entrepreneur. Today, we're talking about some interesting topics: reinvention, creative entrepreneurship, and what it really takes to start over in a new city without losing who you really are. Meet Jose Angel Castro, photographer, artist, teacher, podcast host, and what he calls a creative entrepreneur. Jose moved from Los Angeles to Miami later in life, rebuilt his network, rebuilt his client base, launched a new art body of work, and is now integrating business, art, teaching into one cohesive model. This episode is sponsored by the Miami Marriott Biscayne Bay, a true downtown waterfront escape. Take in stunning bay views, enjoy a rooftop pool, and stay just moments from Miami's top attractions in the heart of the city. Visit www.marriottbiscaynebay.com to learn more. Jose, welcome to the show.
Marty!
All great to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And I'm going to say right off the bat, this you're going to have to bear with me for a second. And
as long as it's good about me, I can take all the time you need.
It's all about you.
Fabulous.
So we're good. I just have to say, I'm a super fan of this show.
Thank you.
Look, Ma, I made it. I'm on the Marty Davis Show. I'm a super fan of this show because I've known about this concept for you since before it happened. So I'm not only like the ride or die, I'm the pre-launch super fan.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I guess I was good enough even to be a guest on your podcast. So, I'm thrilled about it too. So, and not many people, get to that honor. So we're both super fans of one another, I guess.
Yes.
I won't say it's misplaced on your part. But
it is not. It is not.
You moved from LA, that would be Los Angeles for most people, to Miami.
Yeah.
After decades being in LA. That's not a small move.
No.
What was going through your head when you decided to make that move?
Well, the first thing was that move was made out of necessity because my wife and I, all four of our parents, we are fortunate that they're still here. And both of us are relatively, in our families, we are basically the same kid. We were the ones who left and went away for a very long time. But with the pandemic and the aftermath of that, we eventually came to the idea that we needed to be closer to our parents.
So guilt,
essentially. And duty, Marty.
Duty, okay,
duty. My parents are in New Orleans. Her parents are here.
Okay.
Right. So that's what that was about.
That's great.
However, the process of that, as you can imagine, was really, really scary for somebody like me, somebody who is creative, because that means leaving your entire community of like-minded people, a community, a network that you had built over years, and coming to a place where nobody knows you.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no business life here whatsoever. So it was quite a scary prospect. But here now, 3 years and change in, it's a very different story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got a good new friend out of this. It's great.
Exactly.
So tell us, what's scarier, starting at 30 or at 56?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious. I started again at 30. That was another huge transition for me. Well, 31, moving from Amsterdam to Los Angeles, right? Huge transition. But at 30, got no cares really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're still young. You're still full of piss and vinegar. There's nothing really that's going to break the stride. In your 50s, you have all your stuff. You have your house. You have all of your memories that you built. You have you've already written a story down the line, right? So it's a very different thing to kind of extricate yourself from that life that you built in your head to all of a sudden everything's new and different. And honestly, even for my wife, Maria Elena is her name, she moved to Miami, and you can't really say she moved back to Miami because Miami is a completely different animal now than it was when she left in her 20s, right? So we've had the time to really discover Miami and find our way of living here and our place here, making this place ours.
So what did you discover about yourself during this transition?
What I discovered that was super interesting to me, and actually I think it really hit home. If you remember, Marty and I are in a business networking group together, BNI. And if you remember, my last presentation of my first year in BNI, I did a presentation about my first year's journey in BNI.
Right.
And that presentation was super interesting because the process of doing it was really sort of a look back over that first year. And what really solidified for me is that sort of adage of wherever you go, there you are. Because my fear was that I had left everything behind. But what's the common denominator in every one of your experiences? You are.
You.
Right. So I really understood that everything that I had done before, I brought with me. Right. And that was really an interesting revelation, especially in the face of having been so afraid. And going from when I joined BNI to that first year, I also noticed the shift in when I got here, I was like, I don't know anybody. And then after that first year, I was like, hey, I know everybody.
Yeah, yeah. And he does. He's out everywhere. You see him everywhere. So it's great.
Yeah.
So for somebody meeting you, these new people that are meeting you every day, how would you best describe yourself in one sentence?
Ooh. In one sentence?
Hey, it's better than one word, right?
Yeah. One word.
No,
Dynamic.
one sentence. Yeah, no. Fantastic. Yeah. Fabulous. Yes, okay, yeah, no.
In a sentence, I would say that I am creative entrepreneur, interdisciplinary artist, and professional photographer who is looking to better the lives of the people around me in a positive and productive way. That's what I'm about.
So I mentioned earlier about the phrase that you gave me, creative entrepreneur. Break that down for us. What does that mean?
Okay, so creative entrepreneur is me. And it's because when I first started working for myself in my own business, I had to get past sort of the creative, chasing shiny things artist mindset, so that I could get to the tasks of running a business, right? And that switch happened for me that I then started to see building a business as being creative in and of itself.
Okay.
Right? So creativity is usually taking raw elements and putting those pieces together to form some kind of picture or some kind of product. Right? And everybody knows creativity in art to be, you take the paints and the paintbrushes and the canvas and you make a painting, right? With a photograph, you take a camera and you take a subject, you make the photograph and you have a product, a photograph. But I think I look at creativity beyond that. I look at creativity in that you can, the moment you start to formulate in the language of any discipline, it becomes a creative. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you get to a certain level of expertise, I guess, or experience or practice, then things become much more creative. So creative entrepreneurship is me pursuing business not only in disciplines that are creative, but in a creative way. So I look at doing the accounting, I look at the mundane tasks of making phone calls, of all those things as simply pieces of the puzzle that create the picture of my business.
Right. It's the paint, the canvas, and all of that to do your art.
Exactly.
Very good.
So then you don't mind as much, because before I made this switch, I minded a lot. I didn't like all of those
Things.
elements.
You just liked the creative part of it, not the stuff you had to do to make it happen.
To make it actually work. Right.
But if you think of all those things as creative, it's like a spoonful of sugar, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes all that medicine go down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and when you're making art, when you're making a painting or whatever, every stroke you make is not fun, right? That process is not fun, but you're looking to create something in the end,
right,
that's worth seeing. And for me, trying to create a business that's worth doing and that actually finds some success, those elements become, part of the brushstrokes.
Sure. Oh, that's great. Oh. Well, for those of you watching today, don't know that, Jose is accomplished at singing, at dancing, at theater, at art. And most people are told, pick one thing, damn it. Niche down.
Yep.
You rejected that. Why?
I did. And the answer is not a conventional one. First of all,
I wouldn't expect that from you.
First, my entire creative life, people have said, pick one thing. Mm-hmm. You can do a bunch of stuff, but pick one thing. And that always felt, it's like wearing somebody else's suit. It just felt wrong, right? I got to thinking, well, if I'm supposed to only do one thing, why can I do so many things? So what I decided, and this was probably in my mid-20s, early 30s, was I'm going to choose creativity itself, right?
That's your niche.
That is my discipline, that's my practice, that's my niche, is creativity itself. So anything that fits within that works for me. Now, when it comes to working and business, I do have to choose, I have to cherry pick, because you can't go wandering off after every shiny thing. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So I have to point my creativity in a particular direction and keep that heading. It's gonna, just like a ship, it's not gonna make its way in a straight line, right? But if I keep that heading, then I can utilize all the things that I can do, right? It happens for me that way in teaching. Teaching is one of the things that I can do, that I can utilize every skill I own in that one pursuit, right? Which is what makes teaching creative for me.
Right.
It makes it an art form.
So what is your heading? My
heading is to, again, productively and positively influence the lives of the people around me. Mm-hmm. That's my heading. I happen to believe that making photographs of people helps to do that. If I make a photograph of someone, if I take a portrait and I can really dial into that person's beauty, I want to take your picture right now, right?
I hope you got a lot of Vaseline for that lens. Yes.
If I can really dial into that person's beauty, I can make them feel that, and I can capture a good photograph. So that to me is, and hopefully they leave the session feeling better than when they walked into it.
Sure.
Right?
Well, and we've seen that by the people that you've taken photographs of, and they come back and say, oh my God, I look great, or I feel great, or you captured my mood, you captured who I am.
Yeah.
Which is so important, and which is missed by so many of those fabulous headshots that are done for business.
Yeah.
So that's great.
I want to be able to have that two-way experience. One, I want to show, if you're my client, I want to show the audience what you need them to see. And essentially what you need them to see is you. You need them to feel a sense of trust. You need them to feel like, oh, I want to hire this person based on this photograph, right? But the other side of that is I want to show you yourself, right? Because one of the first things that people say to me when I go to make their photographs is, I don't take good pictures. I never take good pictures. Nobody ever gets good pictures of me. And my counter to that is, you've never taken a photograph with me before.
There you go. That's the entree for hiring Jose Angel Castro. But it's true, but it's true in all businesses, because you're looking at the customer to fulfill his needs, and you're looking even beyond the customer to say, this is going to help you, customer, with other people.
Correct.
You've shied away from the term artist in description of yourself. Why do you do that?
Specifically in my photography business. You know, the term artist can be sort of a slippery slope, because I think people have preconceived notions of what it is to be an artist and who they will be dealing with if they're dealing with an artist. That definition, that stereotype comes in as either somebody who's flighty and, you know, they're a butterfly and you can't pin them down, or somebody who's moody and, you know, they're not going to give you what you want. They're going to impose what they want on you.
Sure.
Right? So I avoid that as much as I can, right? I mean,
makes sense.
I've had clients say to me, "Oh, you're an artist," based on what you do. And even then I kind of, because my really important sort of goal in working with any client is, I want to get you what you need, which supersedes what I want. Yeah.
Sure.
And also my eye enters in, my sort of creativity enters in no matter what I do. Right. So I don't have to go imposing it on people. Yeah. It's just not something that I feel like I need to do. So I that's why I shy away from the term artist, as specifically in my photography business.
I think you've already told us this, but help me out just so that we're making it clear for everyone listening. The thing that separates you as a professional from somebody that's got a camera.
Well, there's a couple of things. There are a couple of things, and a couple of really important things, I think. One is that principle of what my client needs is more important than what I want.
Right.
As a photographer, as a professional. Right. That's one thing. The other thing is the average of usable photographs, the average of usable media, right? When you have a professional, their average of usable, let's say that professional takes 100 photos, 80% of those photos will be usable for something. Whereas a person with a camera might fall on a decent photograph every 1,000 frames.
Have you looked in my phone? I think you've seen it. You know, I take 10 shots and they're like, oh, too bad. And so, yeah, no, I understand completely.
Yeah. And with, you know, the sort of proliferation of digital photography, whether it's through, everybody has what's equal to a professional camera in their phone, right? But also prosumer cameras have gotten so inexpensive that you can buy a camera that any professional could actually make professional photographs with. But people are often fooled that they, because they bought a fancy camera, can do what I do.
Right.
And it's generally not so. It's just generally not so.
No, and I'm living proof. Once anyone wants to see my photographs, you can see the difference. Because it's awful. And it's like, and it's not just that the Eiffel Tower is popping out of the middle of my head when I'm taking that shot, but it's everything from color to, all that. And the mood and the look and all of that.
Yeah. It's everything from the composition to the consideration of light to, if I'm going to shoot something for a client, I'm going to be considering what time of day it is. I'm going to be considering the direction of the light coming during that part of the day. If I'm using, artificial light, what direction does that have to come through to make it as either natural as I need it to look, or to really give it something extra, something interesting?
Sure, right? Yeah.
All of those things come into play, even when I'm walking down the street shooting on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of those things come into play.
Well, it's very funny because just before we started shooting this afternoon, he's looking at the table here between us and seeing that there's one glass of water on it and that it isn't balanced. And you could see there was a little bit of sweat on his brow looking down at it. And our producer, at the same time, not to his knowledge, was filling a glass of water so that you'll note that they were even. I had a sip. But now there is, symmetry here.
Yeah,
so,
that settled me down.
You guys, and I wouldn't even have noticed that the glasses were on the table, quite frankly.
I was a little anxious about it, Marty.
And it's great. I love it. I love it. That's a true professional. That's what you're bringing to the table here. And that's what our viewers need to know to appreciate, number one, a professional photographer, but the importance of detail and the importance of how that works in the creative mind of the entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the one of the tricks is in nurturing your ability to observe.
Yeah.
That you when you walk into a space, you take in everything in a space and you notice whether things are in balance, out of balance, what needs to be moved, all those sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah. All of us have our own little creative. I'm looking at a contract and reading a sentence and going, oh, no, you're not signing that. And you're looking here and saying, Marty's going to be unbalanced in this. That's
exactly my point.
Yeah.
In your profession, with your amount of practice and experience, you now move into a space of creativity where you can formulate in that language in a way that, a newbie walking into a law firm for the first time couldn't possibly do.
Right. They just don't have the experience to do it.
Yeah. And they don't see, like, you look into a brief and you see the words differently than they would see the words.
Right. Yeah. And it is really true. It's for me, going to law school was awful. I was a great student in college and it was easy. Then I went to law school and all of that stuff was so time consuming and difficult, and reading cases and case law and making deductions and opinions from them was so difficult at the time. And now, 40 years later, you're looking at that, and you go through and you go, oh, yeah, that's the holding on that. This is fine. This is what we're going to do with that. So it is. Experience makes a huge difference.
And practice.
And it's that practice and that don't beat yourself up if you're just starting your business and you make a mistake or two. You're learning and you are doing that creative process in whatever you do, right?
Yeah.
No, so it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You talked about BNI, and you joined shortly after coming to Miami, or within a couple of years.
Yeah.
And what role did networking play in rebuilding your momentum from Los Angeles?
There was not a more important decision I could have made than joining BNI. And there's nobody who's more surprised by that than me. Because, I, as a creative entrepreneur, as a photographer, I've led a very lone wolf kind of life. So group dynamics, I've always been super shy of. And when I joined BNI, with the inward agreement, I'm going to join for 1 year. And if BNI doesn't prove itself to me in that 1 year, then that's fine. I'm done, right? But BNI led me to this amazing circle of people, including yourself, that has led me to 2 other powerful networks, and all in a very short period of time. And this is stuff that I didn't do when I lived in Los Angeles.
Sure.
Right?
Well, you're forced to do it now because you're in a new place and you're starting again.
But even then, before I walked into that room, I had never heard of BNI in my whole life. I mean, and I knew a lot of people in Los Angeles, but I'd never heard of it. So to go from, what it did was it accelerated my experience. I went from 0 to 60 the moment I joined, because I had an instant sense of community, which is the thing that I lamented so much about leaving Los Angeles.
Right, and it's a feeling of safety too, isn't it? You've got a family.
Yeah.
Mary Thompson was on our show here,
I watched
and
the show, yeah.
she's going to be appreciative of this. So, Mary, obviously you need to do more work in L.A., but here we're covered and we're loving you. And so it's all good. And we've talked about BNI, and, just like you, I was going to give it a year. And, maybe it'll be good. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't. 25 years later, I'm still in it and going every day or every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m., traveling almost an hour and a half to get to our meeting, which many people think is crazy, but I enjoy it. And it's
valuable.
Fun and it's the family.
It's valuable.
Yeah.
It has a lot of value for you, obviously. It has a lot of value for me. What I decided to do as well was, in my BNI experience, that I would just say yes to things that made sense. So when I was asked to join leadership, just said yes as a visitor host. I was like, okay, I don't know why you're asking me to do it, but I'm going to do it. I did it. Super valuable.
Yeah.
Gets me.
You don't know until you're in it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Yeah, I got asked to do other leadership roles, including the leadership role that I'm in now, which is educational coordinator, which I'm super happy about. I'm super proud
And you're
of.
super good at it.
I'm
So
super
that's
proud
good.
of that, right? And I think the chapter has experienced what it is that I mean when I say, for me, teaching is an art.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're bringing in elements. I need to bring in elements that are going to capture people's attention, that are going to make them walk away feeling like they've learned something, feeling a little bit more motivated, without feeling talked down to.
Right. Or preached at.
Or
right.
preached at, or browbeaten,
Yeah.
right? Because first of all, we're all grown, So yeah, my BNI experience has been a super valuable one.
Oh, that's great.
Super valuable.
Well, I've got to switch our direction here for a minute.
Sure.
We've just had lunch, but I'm always hungry. And one of my favorite fruits is a mango. And those of you who are listening to us out of South Florida may not know what a mango is, but it's an absolutely delicious tropical fruit. But since meeting Jose, mangoes have brought on a whole new meaning. Because this is where things get interesting with Jose. Jose,
silly.
Yes.
A little silly.
A little bit. Yes. Walk us through how your love of mangoes turned into an art body of work.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm from a culture called Garifuna, right? We are indigenous Afro-descended Caribbeans. And mangoes, you're going to hear me say mango because I pronounce it in
That's
Spanish,
right.
right? But mangoes are incredibly important in our culture, right? And also in India, in loads of places. What I didn't know moving to Miami was that South Florida is one of the only places in the world that has this many varieties of mangoes, right? So the story goes, actually, it's a true story. Last summer,
Trust him. It's a true story.
It's a true story. Trust me. We'll get there. Last summer, I decided that what I wanted to try to do was to sample as many varieties of mangoes as I could by urban foraging. Now, urban foraging, respectfully,
What is that? Stealing mangoes from people's yards? Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Ah,
but
nice.
No, not actually, crossing people's
He's a
property.
U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Okay, no. All right.
Not actually crossing people's property lines, but there are loads of trees in all
You
the
have one of
neighborhoods
those things with the
Miami
long pole and you can reach over their fence? Oh,
that the tree grows over the sidewalk.
Yeah, there you go.
The city
just
also
great.
has planted loads of trees, in that band of grass between the sidewalk, the grass, and the street. There are trees that are also like that, right? So there's loads of access to fruit all over South Florida all the time.
Right.
So I went to look for these different varieties, and I found them. I found loads of varieties. And as I was going to eat them, I realized how beautiful they were, and I thought, let me make a photograph. And I have this really nothing set up in my kitchen. The great thing about it is the light that comes through my kitchen window in the afternoons. So I would take the fruit and I would set it on this little stand and I would make a photograph of it against my white kitchen hutch, right? Then I started looking at the photos after I had made a number of them. And I was like, wait a minute, there's something here. And then I saw the parallel between the fruit and the human form. And I was like, there you go. So a project called Dirty Fruit, Sexy Pictures of Nature's Candy, was born.
Ah.
Every piece of fruit that I photographed is on the same setup in the same spot. So there's nothing that takes away from the form of the fruit. Then mangoes gave way to, I was at the farmer's market. I saw a tomato that reminded me of
course it did. Yeah,
I was like, okay, there we go. Right. So fruit after fruit after fruit, peaches and plums and all of these things caught my eye and got photographed in this way until it became this body of work. And it's an amazing thing as sort of the first big project that I've ever worked on in Miami, because the reactions of people are very specific when people see these things. They're really they fit into two pools. Either people are going, oh my God, that's really sexy. Or they're going, should I even be looking at this?
My children are here.
Exactly,
Yes, I know.
exactly. And even me as the artist, as the person who's making these things, I'm sitting in my kitchen photographing them, and it's a very uncomfortable setup. I have to be down in between the counter and the wall, and it's a very uncomfortable setup. But I'm super passionate about it. So as I'm photographing, I'm like, should I even show this to people? It seems so dirty. And my answer is always, dude, it's a piece of fruit.
There you go.
It's just a piece of fruit. I mean, that's kind of the ultimate reaction. You know, art is meant to move the audience. That's what it's meant to do.
So it brings me to a question.
Yes.
So what is your favorite position?
Pretzel.
Pretzel.
Yeah, pretzel.
Very good.
That's the way I'd photograph these things.
We'll leave that to your imagination.
In pretzel position.
You know, if you do want to meet Jose outside of this podcast, if you go to most of your produce departments, he will be there.
I will be there.
Salivating over the fruit and looking for his next subject.
That's it.
But
That's
no, I love it. And you need to see these things because they are fantastic. And just as you've said, you kind of go, wow, that's really sexual. And then at the same time, it really is. It's just a piece of fruit.
Just a piece. That's the only thing in the frame is a piece of fruit.
Yeah, no. And most of the time, you don't even see the stand.
And I don't manipulate them. You know, somebody asked me, do you look for certain perfect fruit or whatever? No. And if it has freckles, it has freckles. A friend of mine actually, she noticed when she saw it, and she was like, "Oh, you left in what I call inclusions." I don't like to call them imperfections. I'd rather use diamond terms, right?
I see.
Inclusions. And she was like, oh, that's cool because that's like the human body.
Right.
Everybody's got this freckle or this dimple or this, right? This bulge or whatever. That's the way I leave it. There's one super interesting aspect to it that I have never talked about publicly. But I'm going to talk about it now.
But you're hearing it here.
Now that I'm here on the Marty Davis Show. Because it's weird. It's a weird thing. It's a weird art thing. It's a weird artsy thing. It's been a super interesting experience because every piece of fruit that I have photographed, I've actually eaten. So there's something interesting about the process of consuming the subject. It's weird. I know it's weird. I just had to say it. But it's a very interesting thing to have actually taken into my body the subjects of these photographs. Oh.
Okay. And you also don't have a vitamin C deficiency anymore.
That's right.
And that's great. And no, I like that too.
Vitamin C, potassium, all of them I have
all
covered.
Of those things. Yes, I know. And tomato really is a fruit, isn't it? Yes. Okay. And it appears you don't have a particular type.
I do not.
That's nice. And all these things I thought you'd probably want to know. Ladies, gentlemen, whatever. Yeah. And so when did you realize this wasn't just photography, but it was art? Is it during the taking of the picture or when you're eating the fruit afterwards?
Marty, you're so naughty.
Just following the answers. Just following the answers. Inquiring minds want to know. The National Enquirer went out of business, so I want to continue their tradition. Yes.
It was after reviewing pictures as sort of a whole, right? When I had 10 or 15 pictures and I looked at them, one successively behind the other, I realized that there was something here. A lot of my art has photography in it, right? But a lot of my art doesn't. So I can paint and do some sculpture and whatever. These particular pieces are photography based, but I print them on canvas and then I manipulate them with other materials, other media. So whether it's paint or fabric, there's some fiber involved in some of them. So that's the thing about photography as an art form too, is with the proliferation of digital photography, sort of the perceived value of photography as an art form lowers because everybody thinks they can do it.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of marry the two sides of myself as an artist.
Right.
Marry the photography with other mediums as well.
To kind of, in watch terms, add a complication to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think it's great.
Yeah. Add a twist. And it does, I think the pictures in and of themselves, they kind of mess with your brain a little bit because it's just a piece of fruit, but it makes you feel something visceral.
Yeah.
Right. Me adding stuff to it adds another layer.
Sure.
And one of the things that I try not to do is I try not to change the colors of the background so that still all you see is the fruit. So you get to have more than one experience with the piece. If you're looking at it from across the room, you probably won't notice the texture of the background or the paint or the symbols that are carved in or whatever. As you get closer, you start to
appreciate those.
Yeah, you start to appreciate something else, another level.
Now that you're doing this, you're getting more access to the art world.
Yeah.
And that's something that you really hadn't expected. So what's been the change?
Networking has been the change, honestly. Because I'll connect those dots for you. I joined BNI. I met you. You brought me to the chamber. Another guy, Alain Haug, joined our chapter. He introduces me to a commercial real estate broker in Miami Beach while I'm looking to put together a show last December. That commercial real estate broker, his name's Kevin Kruger, great guy. He is helping me look for spaces, and he knows through Miami Business Club, another network, that there's a woman who's starting a new art organization called Miami Art Circle. He drops me into the WhatsApp chat for Miami Art Circle. And all of a sudden, this is during Art Basel week last year. And all of a sudden, I have a whole bunch of access that I didn't expect. Not only was I going to art fairs that I was gonna go to anyway, I'm invited to these parties and these get-togethers where you're actually communing around art and the business of art.
Very good.
Right? So that shifted everything. The show didn't work out, but the show wasn't meant to work out.
Right. It was the meeting of the people, and that's the step you were supposed to have.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was the access that was supposed to happen. So now, for anybody listening or watching, come this coming December, when Art Week rolls back around, I will be doing my independent art show, and now I have a whole bunch more power to do it.
Right, and a whole new circle of people to promote it, and all.
Exactly. So now instead of having my BNI circle, I now have BNI circle. I now have Miami Art Circle. I now have Miami Business Club. I now have the Gay and Lesbian Chamber. That's 4 very powerful groups that can help me promote the show, just to attend the show. I mean, that's a lot of people who can just come to the show.
Very good.
Yeah.
No, and when we're finished filming today, I have a new location for you too. Yeah, and I hope you don't mind. It'll be an empty space with probably 100 people having cocktails, and there's nothing on the walls, and it's a former art gallery. Would that be a bad thing for you?
That would be horrible, Marty.
Oh, I know you're visioning fabulous mangoes in your mind right now. Yes, no, I see the little sweat coming down his brow.
That would be fantastic.
No, it's good. It's happening now as we speak.
And Marty, they're big.
Yeah, good. I'm glad.
I've always envisioned them being large. So
Bigger is better, as they say. So,
bigger
yes.
is better.
So what's the difference? Let's get down some nitty gritty for the entrepreneurs watching us. What's the difference between creating for a client and creating for a gallery wall?
Oh, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When I'm creating for a client, I'm looking to give the client what they want, not what I want. Actually, more accurately, what they need.
Right. Okay.
Whatever that series of photographs, those videos, whatever they're meant to do, it's for their purposes, for their reasoning. When I'm putting something on a gallery wall, I'm looking to communicate something for me,
Your
from
message.
me. Yeah, for me and from me, something that's specific to an audience.
Okay.
Right? I'm looking to move people to feel something. Right? So it's the client work is not as personally motivated. Although there's the personal in it, because I definitely want to do my job well. I definitely want to give you what you need. But putting stuff on a wall, that's walking through the town square naked. That's a whole other.
Well, but creating for the client and knowing what the client needs is really creative and important for the client's benefit, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So,
and don't get me wrong. I don't have any less pride when it comes to, as a matter of fact, I have a great deal of pride when it comes to making sure my clients get what they need.
sure. No.
It's just a different. It just comes from a different place. I wouldn't even say that one or the other has any more or less value, right?
Right. The purpose is a little different.
The purpose is different.
That's right. Yeah. Or the motivation behind
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right.
You also spend a lot of time on your podcast, which thank you for allowing me to be a guest.
Thank you for being
talking
a guest.
about the younger generation. Me. No, really, the younger generation. What are you seeing in them right now? We were just chatting about this at lunch.
just talking about it at
And
lunch.
what gives you hope and what gives you concern?
The podcast, it's called In Pursuit of Signal, and it's a discussion around the social impacts of technology on our everyday lives, which technology right now touches everybody, right? I did a class for middle and high schoolers back in 2012 that was called My I World. In Pursuit of Signal is the evolution of My I World.
Okay.
Same discussion, but this discussion is for grown-ups.
Okay.
Right? Because now those kids are in their mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, and they're now dealing with the ramifications of having grown up in a digital world.
Okay.
Right? The hope that I see in them, we were talking about this at lunch too, the hope that I see in them is that I think they will approach the use of technology for their children very differently than it was approached for them.
How so?
Back in 2012, I had a room full of, between 12 and 17-year-old kids. And the one question that stuck with me the most over all these years, I asked them, if you as a group, when you grow up and you have kids, would you allow your kids to use technology the same way you are allowed to now? And to a person, they said, absolutely not. 100% not.
That was back then, or this is now?
That was back then.
Oh, okay.
That was back
Interesting.
then. They were,
Okay.
And this was 2012, and 2013 was a very pivotal moment in technology.
Right.
2012, 2013, the self-facing camera
Right.
was invented and came out on devices. They had already had 4 or 5 years into the release of the smartphone.
Right.
Right. So they were really steeped in let's give you this machine that will distract you, and they fell deep, right? But the thing was that they noticed at the time, back then, they noticed that their parents also fell deep. So they were not unconscious of what was happening around them and how it was happening. The technology itself was just addictive.
Right.
Right. And the thing that people, especially people of our generation, even the older people in the generation after us, right? There is, and this is this might be controversial. We might get controversial on the Marty Davis Show.
It's okay. We already talked about naked fruit, so
we already talked about dirty fruit.
Listen.
It's a question of where the responsibility lies for where these children, now adults, are in their lives. And there's an awful lot of these kids today that doesn't apply the same way as it did when we were kids. Right? If we were listening to rock and roll music in our room at 14 or rap music in our room at 14, and our moms came to knock on the door and say, "That's too loud, turn that down, I don't want to hear that noise," right? Your mom didn't turn around, go to the kitchen and listen to that same rock and roll music.
True.
Now, parents go to their kids' room, bang, 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 "Get off that phone, I can't believe you're always on that phone." And they're literally on their phone while they're yelling at their kid, or they turn around and pick up their phone, right? And kids notice this. And I think that people miss the fact that they actually notice it. So, fast forward to today, many of my students from back then are having their kids now. They're having their first children.
Sure.
And they don't want their kids to have the experience of, when I look up at my mom or my dad, their face is in a machine, so I can't get their attention. And I think that's at the heart of what the difference is, right? Because that's a big deal. It's a big deal to so much of childhood development, that if I'm in a stroller and I'm a kid in a stroller, before I would look up at my mom or my dad, and they would look at me and say, "Hey, Timmy," and right?
Yeah.
And they would interact. You learned language. You learned when you can and cannot interrupt, right? You learned social cues. You learned so many things. That's changed a lot when the child is on a machine and the parent is on a machine.
Sure.
So a lot of those,
makes sense.
A lot of those connections, a lot of those interactions have been lost. And I think that this generation, as they grow into adulthood, they realize that. They realize that. And they still understand what it felt like to be that kid in the stroller. So I think they're going to change some things up.
Well, how good would that be? I think that's
fantastic.
great. Yeah.
There's another little bit of glimpse of hope, and this is anecdotal, mind you.
Okay.
But I've been studying this for a long time. It's anecdotal. However, I have grandnieces now. In Spanish, my position would be tío abuelo, uncle, grandfather.
Okay.
Right? Or grandfather, uncle, grand uncle, right? I refuse to let my grandnieces call me tío abuelo, so they call me super tío.
Oh, I like that. Very good. Very good.
And they call my wife super tía.
Great.
Okay.
And you now have a cape. This is good. I love it. Yes. No.
I need a suit, though. I do need a super
There you
tía
go.
suit.
We can get one that says the Marty Davis Show on it for you. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. Listen.
Super Tío, sponsored by the Marty Davis
That's
Show.
right. Yeah.
I see something interesting and new in my grandnieces and in their generation. Their generation is called Generation Alpha. And I'm seeing something interesting and new about them. They don't interact with their parents making photos or videos of them in the same way. Not very well at all, actually. They shy away from the camera quite a bit. Whereas the generation before them would...
Oh, my God. Yeah. No, that's...
right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's just sort of this innate thing maybe in them. I think that's a very, very special generation.
Interesting, yeah.
Generation Alpha. So everybody keep your eye on Generation Alpha. There's some really interesting stuff going on there.
I like it. No, that's good. Because I'm one of those that talk about those kids today. I feel just like my father saying that, because he would say that, about my friends. You kids,
You kids.
Yeah, no.
And the thing is, we were talking about that too at lunch, and we talked about that earlier too on a different subject. I look at it as somebody being practiced or unpracticed at something, right? Having that filter of the phone, of the device all the time, makes you unpracticed at stuff. Just like if you have your phone and you don't know what you're doing and you hand it to a 15-year-old and they're like, really easy, they're practiced at that.
Yeah.
But they're not practiced at looking you in the eye, at having a conversation for 5 minutes without a phone, right?
Yeah.
And when we go back to that responsibility piece, how many 8-year-olds do you know who can afford to buy a $1,200 phone?
Yeah.
They didn't go to Verizon or to T-Mobile or wherever and buy their iPhone. Their iPhone was bought for them.
Right.
It was handed to them. Then does that make the results of using that iPhone their fault?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an interesting
Why?
question.
Yeah, no.
It's an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very
so,
cool. That's one way a company has monetized their ideas. But for business owners watching, what's the smartest way to monetize knowledge today?
Go to where people are. That's the smartest way. And people are in digital spaces. Whether you go into the digital space and then you bring people back into the IRL space, the in real life space. Although a lot of businesses have been doing a lot, even those businesses though, with seminars and those sorts of things, they still spend a lot of time in digital spaces, in online spaces. That's the way you capture people's attention now, because that's where everybody is.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your age, everybody's there. It's just a matter of which platform you're working with.
Right.
Right.
And your content that
Right.
will interest a certain group.
Yeah. But if you have something to say, you have to go to where the people are.
Sure.
And that's
where they're at.
That's where they are.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
At the end of each show, I'd love to do a little piece that we call rapid fire.
Sure.
It gives our audience a little chance to get to know you better.
Mm-hmm.
And because this is a one-word answer, first thing that comes to your mind for the questions that
Now I get my one-word answers.
There you go. Tomato or mango?
Mango.
One myth about artists you want to break.
That we're flighty.
One belief about entrepreneurship you disagree with.
Only one thing.
Yeah, just one.
That's what I mean. That's the thing that I think is a myth, that you can only do one thing.
Oh, that you can only do one thing. Got it. Okay, very good. Yes, you are that man on many lanes. So many fruits,
Many fruits.
and many fruits. One rule you live by as a creative.
Done is better than perfect.
Best advice for someone starting over in a new city.
You brought everything with you. Just stay the course.
Best advice for someone hiring a photographer this month, besides your phone number.
You get what you pay for.
Where can people see your work?
You'll be able to see my work in December as an artist. You can find me on Instagram at Jose Angel Photo. That's JoseAngelPhoto. You can also at the same joseangelphoto.com, joseangelphoto.com.
Right.
Launching a new website soon, just joseangelcastro.com, because it's time.
There you go.
Inspired by coming here to talk to you today.
Oh, great.
It's time that I honored all of those facets. It's just finding a way to make that cohesive, right? I mean, most of the time I don't talk about all the things that I can do, simply because it's difficult for people to process one person being able to do all of these things, right? People want to sort of compartmentalize.
Thank you.
Right.
Right, and you can be good at multiple things.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And finding what you're good at and then doing it is the key, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all tools in the toolbox. I collect skills. That's what my creative process has been, is collecting skill and then figuring out how to deploy that skill. So if you're a carpenter, you're going to collect a certain number of tools in your toolbox, and you're going to take those tools and you're going to make whatever it is you make, a cabinet, a house, whatever. And for me, when it comes to creativity, it's the same thing, collecting tools. And then a lot of times what happens is the opportunity to use those tools simply appear.
Yeah. There you go. Well, Jose, this has been powerful. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Marty.
Renovation later in life, building relationships from scratch.
Renovation, that's awesome.
Isn't that good?
That's
awesome.
Listen,
and turning mangoes into art, running a business without ego, and integrating creative entrepreneurship and teaching into one's life. If you're watching this and have been told to pick one lane, maybe today's lesson is this. You don't have to shrink to fit into someone else's category. Follow your own paths, whether it's singular or plural. If this conversation gave you something to think about and was valuable, share it with somebody who could benefit. Drop a comment for us and tell us who you'd like to see next and what topics you're interested in and want us to cover. And go follow Jose Angel Castro to see how creative entrepreneurship actually looks in real life. We're building this show for you. I'm Marty Davis. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much, Angel.
thank you so much.
So.